The goal for this year is simple: run it back and dominate your fantasy football leagues. So let me help you do just that by telling you the top running backs to target for this season. That's right, stay tuned for the 2025 top 15 fantasy football running backs. Ooh, welcome, football fans, to another edition of IDP Plus. What is up, folks? I'm your host here, the DGen Doc, and that's right, we are talking about fantasy football running backs. We are talking our top 15 here, and we are doing this on the eve of 4th of July, July 3rd, some would say, but recording this what is it, Thursday night, July 3rd, knocking it out before the holiday. Great holiday to celebrate America's independence, birthday, all those good things. Great day to just enjoy the wonderful country we live in. Look, I get it. We have our problems like every country does, but America's a great country. There's a lot of things to be thankful for, and football is one of them. And this great holiday got me thinking about, some of the best, like when you think of an American sports movie, what are some of the movies you think of? There's a bunch out there. Remember the Titans, Field of Dreams, but shout out True TV. They were showing one of my absolute favorite movies here, Friday Night Lights. I mean, if you're a football junkie, like you probably are, listening to football content in early July because you just can't get enough of it, you probably love this movie. I mean, everyone remembers, high school football with your buddies. Never know when the last snap's gonna be. Texas high school football, man. This movie is amazing. So one, if you haven't seen it, what are you doing? Go see it. Two, if like me, yeah, it's been a little while since you've seen it, do yourself a favor, watch it again. Maybe even, convince the wife, convince whoever that, hey, I got plans for us tomorrow. So, of course, watch your fireworks, be safe, enjoy, do all that. But hey, don't forget, check out your favorite sports movie because that'll help you remind you how great this country is. So, enough of that. We are talking fantasy football, and we are specifically talking redraft. So, if you're dynasty bro and you're into dynasty fantasy football or dynasty gal, we did a whole series on dynasty rankings. We went through quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. Now we're on to, we actually did a top 25 overall as well. Now we're on to redraft. I just released a tight ends episode. Derek is knocking out the quarterbacks and wide receivers. And today it's running backs. We're talking the top 15 running backs for the 2025 NFL season. With it being redraft, we only care about this season. The way this is going to work is very similar to how it works with all the other shows. There's a top 15. We're going to start off with a tier of honorable mentions. Kind of didn't really crack the top 15, who's just on the outside looking in. And then we're going to go through 3 tiers we have today, 15 to 1, with a big reveal being who's number 1, which I feel like this actually kind of has a little bit of mystery. Tight ends, wide receivers, even kind of quarterbacks. Like there's kind of consensus on the top overall number 1. There's not as much consensus this year with the running backs, and I think rightfully so. There's 3 or 4 guys that can really, you can make a really good case for. So I think there'll actually be a little bit of a surprise there. So excited for that. Let's go ahead and kick this off here with the, oh, I almost forgot. Let me know your favorite sports movie. Doesn't even have, whatever sports movie is. I was thinking of this today. I know I'm completely tangential here, but as I was looking at Friday Night Lights, like I'm thinking, like, man, maybe it is. I think it's definitely my favorite football movie. I was a big Field of Dreams guy, and a couple other ones there. But let me know in the comments what your favorite sports movie is, and even if it's like, what is your favorite, like, yes, this makes me appreciate America. Like, again, Texas football, nothing like it with Friday Night Lights there. But off the tangent, into the content you came for, and that is the running back rankings. We're going to start with these honorable mentions here. Guys who just missed the cut for me. We're going to start with Mr. Kenneth Walker, Joe Mixon, and guy on the graphic, James Conner. All right, let's talk about each of these guys briefly here. We'll kick it off with K9, the third there, and Kenneth Walker. It's pretty simple. When he's on the field, he's effective. He is one of the best. He's had trouble staying on the field. That's why Zach Charbonnet is probably the number one handcuff in fantasy football right now. How can we trust Kenneth Walker to stay healthy? Especially he's had some issues with the groin abdominal area. He's that groin area, which kind of is an umbrella term to speak about both your inner thigh adductor muscles and your lower abdominals. He's had issues with that multiple seasons going back to college. And it kind of reared its ugly head last year. So the number one predictor for an injury is a previous injury to that body part, point blank, period. So it's a bit tough at this point. We now have years of data that he has trouble staying healthy for an entire season. So yeah, he just misses for that reason. I think based on just pure ability, Kenneth Walker absolutely has the ability to crack this top 15. But based on his recent availability from what we've seen in him, that's where he's outside for me. Guys like Joe Mixon, James Conner. Joe Mixon was a guy who I was actually pretty high on last year. He had a great start to the year, kind of faded near the end of the year, kind of looked like he ran out of gas a little bit. You've also got a changing of the guard of the offensive line. Laremy Tunsil goes to Washington, got rid of a couple other pieces there, Shaq Mason, guys like that. So what is that offensive line going to look like? I mean, it wasn't even just the offensive line. They changed all the offensive coaches. Like there's a huge kind of revamp there in Houston. Not exactly sure what that offense is going to look like. And then Nick Chubb, they brought in to be the RB2. Nick Chubb is a guy who last season completely fading because he had that horrible multi-ligament knee injury, ACL, MCL, like everything there. His knee was torn up. But now he's year 2 off of that. I realized he did pick up an injury back half of last year, but it was nothing to do with the major surgery he had. So he's 2 years removed from that major injury. I think Nick Chubb still has some things left in him. That also gives me concerns for around the goal line. Mixon was able to pick up a lot of touchdowns there. If Nick Chubb is going to be a bit of a touchdown vulture, just being the physical kind of specimen that he is, or using him around the goal line, that could be an issue for Joe Mixon. So kind of, a bit of, hey, what's this offense going to look like? And, him kind of starting strong, not finishing well. And then Nick Chubb ad for me actually kind of keeps him off this top 15 for me. And the last one, James Conner, a guy who's a reliable back, but he's going into, he's going to be 30 years old. We've kind of seen what he's going to be. He's kind of got a clear cap. He doesn't really have the highest ceiling. 1,000 yards seems to be like his kind of top end range there. You got to worry about Kyler Murray kind of stealing away some touchdowns on at the red zone there, because Kyler has a really good, propensity to find the end zone. So there's the concern there is, James Conner, reliable guy. He's got a bit of an injury history as well. He seems to miss at least, 2 or 3 games every year. And there's just not a lot of excitement there. I don't hate him as a guy who can be steady and reliable, but definitely not someone who's going to be like league altering or, kind of help propel you to a championship. Kind of a lower upside guide, if you will. All right, let's now get into the actual top 15 to see the guys who actually cracked this list, starting with that first tier. But before we do, I got to tell you about some of our great sponsors over here at IDP Plus. We're going to start with none other than Fast Draft Fantasy. It's prime fantasy time, folks. I mean, look, that's what we're talking about right now. And there's nothing better than Fast Draft Fantasy. It is a best ball format, but they actually have full IDP lineups. They got IDP, they got regular fantasy, they had a rookies only. I mean, they've got a lot of really cool options. And one of the best things here is nobody likes waiting around, having to commit to this draft at taking 30 minutes or an hour, especially in these quick best ball formats where we want to fire off a lot of bullets there. The guys you want to go after, who you're going to pick. You don't need more than 20 seconds. And that exactly is what is on the clock there for Fast Draft. 20 seconds, 6 rounds. And again, the top 4 guys play. They also have these boosters that allow for flexibility after drafting. So it really helps you when you're drafting in the summer and, say an injury happens or something like that. You can kind of move around the flexibility and you can get boosters to see which guys are actually going to crack your lineup. So go check out Fast Draft Fantasy right now. And to make the deal a little bit sweeter, use promo code PlusDGenDoc, all caps, all one word, for a $50 deposit match. It is as simple as this, folks. Download Fast Draft Fantasy, use promo code PlusDGenDoc, deposit $50, and get a free $50 on us. Also, want you to go ahead and check out idpplus.com. We've got a bunch of different tiers of subscriptions, and there is subscriber-only content. We have a subscribers-only Discord. That is how you really get plugged into what you're doing here. So if you appreciate the work that we're doing, we, again, talk football 24/7, 365. We talk offense. We talk defense. We talk special teams. If it is football, I promise you we are talking about it. And then last but not least, one of the best things about the off season is the Fantasy Football Expo, and it's coming up right around the corner, just about a month away. It's August 10th, August 8th through August 10th in beautiful Canton, Ohio, there with the NFL Hall of Fame. You're going to want to check that out. You're going to want to go to the fantasyfootballexpo.com and get your tickets today. All of those will be in the show notes down below. All right, let's get back to it. And we're going to start off with this tier 3. And this tier is called the Call Your Shot tier. And the reason it's called that is because these are guys where, I think maybe the top 10 isn't completely consensus, but I think a lot of people can come to some agreement there on that top 10. But these are kind of the guys that, I see kind of outside of that RB1 potential, outside of actually, really kind of having that super high ceiling and have a lot of variability. So that's kind of where the call your shot is, right? These are the guys that, hey, not quite dart throws, but these are the guys that really think could pop and you can get some really good value out of these players here. So we're going to go from 15 to 10 here, the 6 guys in this range, starting with Mr. Breece Hall, then James Cook. You've got Chuba Hubbard, Mr. Guy on the graphic there, Christian McCaffrey, Josh Jacobs, and Chase Brown. So a interesting tier here of what we have for your call your shots. Now, we're going to start off with Mr. Breece Hall. And I'm not going to go as in-depth on all of these guys because it would be quite the lengthy episode. But I do have a couple guys that I definitely want to highlight here. And Breece Hall is one of them because, in my opinion, on those lists of, 6 guys or whatever, I think that has the most potential for he's got the most variability. He's just like, it could be a great year or it could be awful. Because realistically, what is this Jets offense going to look like? I mean, you bring in Justin Fields, who obviously, needs to use his leg to thrive and survive. Like, that is one of the best things he does. So how much is he going to take away from Breece Hall? But meanwhile, you see a situation in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson, and the threat of his runs has only made Derrick Henry better. So are we going to get a situation there? Braylon Allen is a guy who came on a little bit last year. The organization seemed to like him. Or is it kind of changing of the guard with Aaron Glenn and no more Robert Saleh? So where is that going to go? I do think that Breece Hall out of the backfield, his receiving game kind of went down a little bit. If you look at 2023, he had 67 catches for 591 yards and 4 touchdowns, only 360 yards, 54 catches, and 4 touchdowns last year. About the same, almost exactly the same carries and rush yards, about 990, just under 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. Decent year, but definitely based on where he was projected, he underperformed. And a lot of it was that offense was a mess and the offensive line was a mess. And, I know a lot was because of injuries, but I'm not quite sure, this team's going to definitely turn around. So he made the list because he's definitely got that potential. Coming off that season after the ACL tear, I think he had an incredible year. All things considered. So you were expecting him to kind of take that jump year 2 off the ACL that we typically see with these skilled position guys. And it just didn't happen. And now we go into a completely unknown situation with Justin Fields, Aaron Glenn. What is this actually going to look like? So I put him on here because he's got really nice potential, but he is absolutely a high risk, high reward play for Breece Hall. Moving along here, James Cook, a guy who massive TD jump this season, which was nice to see him start getting some touchdowns and they're not all going to Josh Allen. He does have a little bit of a hold out / hold in situation. Do expect that to be fixed, but a little bit of pause there. And then Ray Davis is a very capable backup. So, look, James Cook, another guy who is going to be productive. He's going to put up points, but not sure he has that ceiling that some of these other guys I think are going to be able to have. And Chuba Hubbard is, a very similar back in my opinion. He had almost 200 more yards than Cook, but then he had 6 less touchdowns, at least on the ground. Cook a little bit more involved in the air, but both these guys have put up back-to-back very respectable seasons. They are RB1s. Now Chuba Hubbard's been RB1 on arguably one of the worst teams in the league for the past 2 years. I know a lot of people are talking about this offense as, Bryce Young is going to really take some step forwards. He showed some promise. He really just stopped looking like the complete ass like he had looked like in the beginning of his career. But that would only help Chuba Hubbard. I'm a big Chuba guy. I've always liked Chuba Hubbard. The RB2 right now in Carolina is Rico Dowdle. Obviously, he wasn't good enough for a bad Cowboys offense, so I don't think he's going to threaten too much there. I do think it's Chuba's backfield. The touchdown opportunities should increase if this Panthers offense is going to take that step forward like people are projecting. I'm not fully on board with this Panthers offense. I wasn't wowed by the Ted McMillan, draft pick. So we'll see. But I mean, it definitely should at least give Bryce Young some more options on the outside with him. Look at Adam Thielen there. So again, the more this offense improves, the more touchdown opportunities improve for Chuba Hubbard. So I only think that's going to help him there. So got to get my guy Chuba in there. This guy that people love to forget about, but he's been very consistent these past 2 years. So I'm absolutely going to have him on this list. Let's talk Christian McCaffrey a little bit here. Comes in at number 12. I know it's probably way lower than most people have him. But, all the opportunities there. No Ayuk, well, at least for the beginning part of the year, coming off that ACL and likely MCL injury. Anytime you add more ligaments involved, it talks about more recovery time needed, more time for them to not only just get on the field, but to also be productive or be even a resemblance of what they were. So I'm not expecting a whole lot from Ayuk in the first half of the season. You got rid of Debo there. It's really, I did the tight end episode, talked about how much I think George Kittle is going to be a part of this offense. CMC absolutely is going to be heavily involved in this offense. My concerns are, is he going to be able to withstand a full season, right? I mean, obviously that's the only reason I would have him as so low. Not only, I mean, the Achilles tendonitis thing, that speaks to the degeneration of the tendon of both of his Achilles, right? And it's not a completely like, oh, it could never, get better, whatever. But it's also not something that, as we saw, just gets better overnight. Like, again, number one predictor for an injury is previous injury to that body part. Um, it wasn't like it was just a one-time kind of minor thing like they first described it. Initially described it as a calf strain. Completely different when we talk about even, an Achilles strain or anything like that, or, sprain. They described it as, tendonitis, again, speaks to longevity. It speaks to degradation of that tendon. You're talking about the integrity of that tendon. That doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy inside, unfortunately. So it's durability concerns. Obviously, going for him on the plus side, playing devil's advocate, he only had 50 carries and 15 receptions. So 65 touches for Christian McCaffrey for his body. I mean, that's not a lot. He should be kind of ready to roll there, but he comes in kind of approaching 30. And I just have major concerns about his durability this season because they're going to use him. When he's in there, they're going to use him, and they're going to use him like crazy. And I think they should. I just kind of have concerns on how those Achilles tendons are going to hold up. He had a knee injury to kind of end the year with the PCL, which is a very annoying injury to come back from. Again, coming into this year, he's healthy as far as we know. I just have a hard time believing he's going to be able to make it a full 17 games. That's why he's definitely got to be on the list. He's got to be in the top 15, but he's a bit lower for me at 12, just because of those durability concerns. All right. Josh Jacobs comes in at 11. Again, the offense kind of runs through him at this point. We saw last year with the Packers, 300 carries, 1,300 yards, 15 touchdowns. Got involved in receiving game, 36 receptions, 342 yards and a touchdown. He's that workhorse that, LaFleur wants the offense to flow through. They want to establish the run, then work, their play action and their 15 slot wide receivers, running all their creative stuff there for Jordan Love. But Josh Jacobs is a workhorse. He's shown the ability to be a workhorse, and he's got a really good situation in Green Bay. So he comes in at number 11. Number 10, to round out this call your shots here, is a guy I'm really high on this year, Chase Brown, coming for the Cincinnati Bengals. As a couple guys we're going to talk about, he's going now year 2 after an impressive rookie season. I was a Zach Moss kind of guy as far as just where he was going the last season. Beginning of the year, felt pretty good about myself as far as, hey, look, Zach Moss he's paying off for me. Things are going well. And then, he had an injury, I believe it's a neck injury too, which you never really want to see for any type of football player, especially one that gets hit on every play they touch the ball. Once Zach Moss went out, Chase Brown absolutely seized the opportunity. He looked great, especially the back half of that season as the Bengals were making that playoff push. 229 carries, 990 yards. Expect the carries to increase as he's the full RB1 there. 7 touchdowns, 54 receptions, 360 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns out of the backfield. He was a very capable receiver. We know how much the Bengals like to throw the ball. That is huge that he's going to be involved in the passing game because, let's be honest, the best thing is he's on one of the best offenses in the NFL. I understand they have some offensive line concerns, but it's Cincinnati. When has Joe Burrow not had offensive line concerns? Like he just kind of figures it out. I like Chase Brown to be able to give them a little bit of change of pace from what they're used to chucking the ball around 60 times a game. But even still, there's going to be plenty of touchdown opportunities for Chase Brown, and he's going to be involved in the backfield. Really like the way he finished the year. So Chase Brown comes in at number 10 and rounds out this tier for me. Moving on to the next tier. Now, these are my RB1 potentials. These are guys who they're not in tier 1 just yet. They're not bona fide superstars, but they're pretty damn close. These are guys that everyone on this list, I think, has a legit shot to finish as the number 1 running back in fantasy football. Again, they are not my top 4, but these are guys that I think have that ceiling where these guys on the last list, weren't quite there for me. I think these guys all have a path to RB1 for fantasy football. So this RB1 potential tier number 2, Kyren Williams, Devon A-Chain, Mr. Graphic, Ashton Jeanty, the rookie, Jonathan Taylor, and rounding it out, Bucky Irving. A couple second year guys here. Really just one, and Bucky. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about Kyren really quick. He's somebody that Sean McVay likes. He's somebody that Sean McVay trusts. He's someone who is almost a lock for double-digit touchdowns. He had 316 carries, 1,300 yards, 14 touchdowns, 34 receptions out of the backfield, 182 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. The year before, almost 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns out of the backfield. So 15-plus touchdowns in each of the past 2 years. That's a huge piece, right? You got to be on a good offense. I expect this offense to be even better this year. I think they improve the offensive line. You obviously get Devonta Smith, Cooper Kupp, bit washed, as we all kind of saw there. I really like Kyren. And you think about the year in 2023, he put up almost 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns and 3 out of the backfield in 12 games. So, 16, last year, a little bit less efficient, but the offensive line was, I mean, if we remember, they had injuries up the wazoo. It was an absolute mess for a large part of that season. So I'm expecting Kyron Williams only at 24. I think he can definitely get back to, again, like, I mean, he's somebody who could definitely crack 20 touchdowns, right? With receiving and rushing touchdowns combined there. He's already, went for almost basically 1,300 yards last year. He's somebody that could, put up a 1,500-yard season, 20 touchdowns combined. And that's going to get you pretty close to that RB1 territory. So Kyron Williams, definitely a guy who's been reliable, lead back on a good offense. So, yeah, give me Kyron there to start off at number 9. Number 8, this is, again, a bit of a high risk, high reward guy. I think a little bit, definitely a lower risk than Brees Hall. But I'm talking about Devon Achane, Miami Dolphins running back, 23-year-old there. Man, this guy's just so damn explosive. And, his rookie year in 2023, we saw flashes. He had an insane 8 yards per carry, almost just under 8 yards per carry. He had 103 rushes, 800 rushing yards, and 8 touchdowns. Pretty insane for just 100 carries. And he was somewhat involved in the receiving game. This past year, the efficiency almost halved, 200 carries, 900 yards only, 6 touchdowns. Now, that receiving game, though, 78 receptions, 592 yards, and 6 touchdowns out of the backfield. And let's just start there with that massive jump in the receiving game. Do I think that's sustainable? Yes. And let me tell you why. They just got rid of Jonnu Smith, who was the second leading receiver on this team last year. Yes, I understand. Waddle was hurt for a large part of the year. You had Tua hurt, and it was up and down. And Waddle and Tyreek Hill need Tua to survive in that offense. But they also need someone to catch passes short, dump off, screens. They love screen game. And I think Devon Achane is absolutely going to be that guy. It's laughable that the Dolphins tight end one right now is Mr. Darren Waller, or formerly known as rapper Darren Waller, formerly known as the guy who retired because he just didn't want to play football anymore while he was under contract with the Giants, formerly known as the guy who's been dealing with chronic back issues, who've really struggled to see him get on the field and be productive since his last season where he looked like that Pro Bowler, 2020. I mean, we're talking about 5 years removed from solid football as a 33-year-old, someone who just took a year off of football. I'll get off my soapbox, but Darren Waller is not a viable tight end one option in the year 2025. So Devon Achane is going to get a ton of that receiving game. He's a very explosive guy. We'll see. The Dolphins made some moves on the offensive line. They should, in theory, improve there. We'll see if they can keep Tua upright. But again, really, it's that receiving game and that kind of big play potential for me for Devon Achane. He's the first guy in this RB1 potential there. Moving down, second guy, but up there at number 8. Number 7, another spot I want to talk about, and that's the rookie, Ashton Jeanty for the Las Vegas Raiders there. 21-year-old who put up 2,600 yards and 29 touchdowns, not in his career, but in 14 games last season. Absurd. 40 games played in his career, 750 carries, over 4,700 yards, and 50 touchdowns. I mean, this guy, the last 2 years, has been just an absolute freak show. And I'm someone who is typically not very bullish on rookies coming in immediately. I don't love to throw a bunch of rookies high up in my rankings. I think there's a bit of an adjustment that comes into it. And that's why that's really the biggest, the two concerns I have for Ashton Jeanty, because I know he's probably a lot higher on other people's list. He comes in at RB7 for me. The fact that he's a rookie, how is this going to translate? Boise State and the NFL. I'm not someone who's going to disrespect Boise State, but there is a level of competition concern, right? And the offensive line. The offensive line was a mess last year. As someone who expected the Raiders to be able to run the rock, because they did pretty well doing that in 2023. Jahmyr White, maybe it was Jahmyr White. Maybe it was, maybe that was the case. Maybe, Madison and McCormick had a little bit better, but the Raiders really struggled to run the ball last year. I do trust Pete Carroll and Geno Smith to come in and kind of stabilize that offense. So I do think he is in an okay situation from that regard. Pete Carroll is definitely someone who likes to run the rock. I just don't know if the offensive line is kind of able to give him some of those holes he's going to need. And he is a rookie. So I want to kind of temper expectations. I don't want to go ahead and say he's, above these guys who have been stud for at least a year in the league. And we've seen that translate to the league. Again, Ashton GT is an awesome prospect. Dude is an absolute freak. But I just kind of need to see it translate, and especially behind this questionable offensive line for the Las Vegas Raiders. All right, rounding out of this tier, we got Jonathan Taylor from the Indianapolis Colts there. Guy's a stud. He's been a stud for a while now, 26-year-old. Over 300 carries in just 14 games last season, over 1,400 yards, 11 touchdowns, and again, just 14 games last season. And he comes in an offense now, this is going to be a run-first offense. Whether it's Anthony Richardson, whether it's Daniel Jones, they want to be able to use the quarterback's legs, run the ball, and then work off play action. So this offense is still primarily going to run through Jonathan Taylor. And if Jonathan Taylor can stay healthy for a 17-game season, Jonathan Taylor can get close to 2,000 yards and 15-plus rushing touchdowns. He is just one of those few guys that can handle the workload. 300 carries in just 14 games. We're talking, 3 more games, we're talking getting close to 350, 375. Yeah. Jonathan Taylor, he's got the opportunity with the run first offense. The biggest thing is, can he stay healthy? Obviously, that's your concern, but I think just the fact that he's going to find the end zone, and whether it's Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor needs to be the focal point of that offense. The running game, I think you're going to get the QBs involved. It's going to have a little bit of that effect of, okay, I can't just load the box and key in on Jonathan Taylor. I've got to respect the quarterback's running ability. I think that just adds, takes one defender out of the box, out of the picture, and allows Jonathan Taylor just another slither of green grass to kind of take advantage of. And then Bucky Irving, second-year player, came on very strong at the end of last year. Very promising, 207 carries and 1,122 yards. I believe that is the fewest rushing attempts to get 1,000 yards on the season, which is very, very respectable. Again, just barely 200 carries to get over 1,000 yards there. That can't be true, actually. I'm looking, I think, 207. James Cook had 1,009. And Bucky Irving, 207, 1,122. So it looks like maybe him and Cook tied for that. But still, very, very impressive efficiency, rush, yards per rush. 8 touchdowns, and he did have 47 catches out of the backfield and 392 yards. I like this Bucs offense, with Baker and Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Emeka Ibuka, Jalen McMillan, Kate Otten, right? Rachaad White, we'll see. He was still getting in and kind of spelling and taking away some of those receptions there. But I think as the year went on, it became abundantly clear that Bucky Irving is head and shoulders the best running back in that, the best running back in that backfield. So I think they're going to continue to ride him and give him even more opportunities. You kind of stretch that out for him getting, maybe 250, maybe 300 carries. Now we're again talking about that 1,500 yards, up the touchdowns and still be involved in the receiving game. I think the Buccaneers, their defense has been a little bit shaky, and it's not going to turn overnight. I think they're going to have to put up points with this offense. And I think this offense that can put up points. So give me Bucky Irving there coming at number 5. All right. Our last tier number 1, we're talking about our league winners. These are guys who I believe are worth the draft capital and can you win your fantasy leagues if you hit this right and especially draft them in the right spots. We're going to start off with a bit of surprise there. 31-year-old Baltimore Ravens running back Derrick Henry. We then have graphic man himself, Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon, Benedict Barkley, and my number 1 running back for the 2025 NFL season, Bijan Robinson for the Atlanta Falcons. maybe a surprise, maybe not. Definitely not anything too crazy. But let's talk about probably the most controversial guy on my list, according to most people, would probably be Derrick Henry at number 4. 31-year-old running back. When is he going to hit that wall? Here's what I got to say. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Some dudes just break metrics, they break analytics, they break predictive fact. They just are gamers, and I do not want to fade them. And Derrick Henry is one of those guys because you could probably say all those same concerns about age and what is this going to look like and wear and tear and yada yada yada. He put up 325 rushes, 1,921 yards, 16 touchdowns, 19 catches out of the backfield for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. That he had an incredible season. An incredible season. Much better than the last season at Tennessee. He's got one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. He's got one of the better offenses in the NFL. He is almost a lock for double-digit rushing touchdowns. I mean, he's done it in easily the past 5 years. And he's got one of the most dynamic rushers right beside him in Lamar Jackson. So you cannot just key in on Derrick Henry. You have to respect Lamar's ability to pull it down and run. And we saw that create huge gaping holes, especially late in the game. When defenders get tired, I mean, as someone whose wife is a Steeler fan, I had to watch it 3 straight games. They could not tackle him, especially in the playoffs. I mean, they were just running all over them. And why would that change? I understand there is concerns about the age and this and that, but Derrick Henry can take care of himself. He's used to a heavy workload. His workload actually hasn't even been as high compared to some of these other guys we're talking about because you have Lamar Jackson taking some of those carries. So he's going to find the end zone. He's a big dude, a lock for double-digit touchdowns. Give me Derrick Henry again to run it back and be one of the better running backs in the NFL, if not the best, in this offense. Number 3, Jahmyr Gibbs. This one's, pretty simple. I mean, coming off the rookie year, put up 300 carries, got more of a workload. A lot had to do with the David Montgomery injury there, which missed a decent part of the season. 300 carries, 1,300 yards, 15 touchdowns, 36 catches out of the backfield, 342 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown there. He's on one of the better offenses in the NFL. He's going to have plenty of touchdown opportunity, even with David Montgomery there. David Montgomery, is someone that, he's definitely going to get his as well. But this offense can sustain 2 really good running backs. And Gibbs is definitely the leader in this clubhouse there from the backfield side. He's explosive. He's got everything you want in running back, and he's on an offense that's going to have plenty of scoring opportunities. So that one's pretty easy for me there. Number 2, Saquon Barkley. I hate to admit this. I am a diehard Giants fan. We have a saying, we're on the Giants, forever a Giant. In my mind, Saquon was never a Giant. He's Benedict Barkley. But you would have to be a fool to fade him. I mean, he is set up in such a good situation. He's got one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, if not the best. He is on a run-first team. He's on a team with a good defense that's going to want to run the ball and probably play with a decent amount of leads. And he's got a quarterback that does have rushing ability as well, and defenders are going to have to honor. He is probably in the best situation he could be. He has to be number 2 on this list. Now, the concerns, he had over 400 touches between, the regular season. I think he had, even playing just 16 games, 345 rushes and 33 receptions. So, 378 touches just in the regular season. Then he played 4 playoff games. So he's well into the 400s in touches. 2,000 rush yards, 13 touchdowns, 2 through the air. There is concern about how that's going to look, but Barkley is a guy who, again, kind of athletic freak, athletic specimen. He does have a bit of an injury history. Again, we just saw him have one of the best years a running back's ever had. I think, if he plays that 17th game against the Giants, which they ultimately decided to not do, he breaks the single season rushing record. You just can't fade him. You cannot, unless you're, really kind of predicting injury, or I guess that's it really, is kind of just saying he's going to get hurt. And that's why he's not, outside of your top three. But I think that's Barkley for me, comes in at number two. All right, enough nice things about the worst franchise in the league. Let's talk about the number one guy I have. RB1 for me this year, Bijan Robinson, former Texas Longhorn, Atlanta Falcon here, 23-year-old, coming into his third season. As a rookie, he was kind of, you know, teased in a little bit. 200 carries, almost 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns, 58 catches out of the backfield, 487 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns. This season, hey, look, I'm a big Tyler Algier guy, but, Arthur Smith wasn't there to just run Algier all the time. So he got 300 carries, almost 1,500 yards, 14 touchdowns, 60 catches out of the backfield, 431 yards, and 1 touchdown. He's got a very good offensive line. He is a very capable receiving threat out of the backfield, and he is on a team with a quarterback who's like a half rookie. Penix, Michael Penix came in, kind of played the last couple of games, but does not have a ton of experience. Definitely going to need that outlet, to drop it off to Bijan. They effectively use him in the screen game. This guy's just a beast. I mean, it's he's got everything you're looking for as kind of being the next dominant running back. He's only 23 years old, coming into his third season. He's got a good offensive line. He's got a competent quarterback, which couldn't always be said his first 2 years, where, they're not, all defenses are, I don't believe, are going to be able to just load the box. I'm pretty optimistic on Michael Penix. I think he's actually, one of my favorite prospects coming out, probably because he's old as shit. But I thought he was one of the best pure throwing quarterbacks coming out of that draft class there, 2 years ago. So Bijan, yeah, he's got everything you're looking for. He is going to be able to be a workhorse. He's going to be effective out of the backfield. He's playing behind a good offensive line. He's got a quarterback that is going to, I think, command some respect from defenses. And he's playing in a division that, quite frankly, has awful defenses. Atlanta too. I don't think Atlanta has a very good defense. Carolina has one of the worst defenses in the league. Tampa Bay, I talked about their struggles. They're getting older. They're trying to get a change in the guard. That secondary is all beat up. And then the Saints might have the worst offense, or excuse me, well, offense too, but defense. So when you think about that division, I think you're going to want to load up on players in the NFC South. Bucks may have the best defense, and I think they have a bottom half defense. The Falcons, Panthers, and Saints might have 3 of the worst defenses in the league. So there's going to be some points needed in the NFC South, and Bijan is going to be able to take advantage of that. So that is why he is my RB1, and that concludes our 2025 RB ranking show here. Look, folks, almost taking us all the way up to midnight there, running into July 4th. But hey, couple things. One, now at this point, when you see this, likely, if not only a couple days, redraft rankings are going to be done. You'll have tight ends, you'll have quarterbacks, you'll have wide receivers, and you'll have running backs. We invite you to join us back. Derek and I are going to combine, and we are going to do a top 25 overall best redraft. Who are the guys, the 25 guys you want to draft, the top of your board, regardless of position there. We're going to kind of mix them together, do a cumulative overall one there. We've also got, again, I mentioned Dynasty. If you're interested in Dynasty, we went and did the same thing. So all our rankings for offense going to be out there. If you want defensive, IDP, it's in the name, might be why you're here. Axton, Johnny, a bunch of those guys over there are knocking those out. Those are all done already. You're definitely going to want to stick around. We've got a bunch of exciting content. Also, bit of a plug here. IDP Plus bets. If you are interested in betting, whether it's college football, NFL, anything betting wise over there. I'm help run that page. We are going to be doing some NFL division previews. Training camp is right around the corner. Hall of Fame game is this month. We're going to have actionable football to bet on. But we'll be doing kind of a futures dive. We'll be talking, breaking down each team, talking win total, talking futures, talking prop bets. Also, going to do a college football episode, talking basically, kind of a little bit of more of a, not as in depth. It's going to be kind of a more broad strokes kind of, hey, these are the teams, my favorite win totals, just because there's so many teams there. But to walk through the college football playoff, talk about some futures there. So we got a lot of exciting stuff coming up. Look, they call it the dog days of summer. Things are slowing down for football junkies like you and me. Things are just starting to speed up. We're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Again, we have a real professional football game being played this month. You got to get ready for fantasy. You got to get all those drafts going. You got to get your bets in. And we got to get ready to enjoy a glorious college football and NFL season coming up here in 2025. So, enough of that, enough rambling. Make sure if you enjoyed this, like, comment, subscribe, leave me a comment. Tell me what you're doing for the fourth. Tell me your favorite sports movie. Tell me if you agree Derrick Henry's too high, who's too low. Let's chop it up. You can also find me on X, TikTok, Instagram at the DGen Doc. Hit me up via those ways. And other than that, folks, look, have a happy, healthy, safe 4th of July. Enjoy the independence of this country. Enjoy the freedoms and be safe and get ready to enjoy one of the best things it produces, which is the National Football Week. All right, folks, for the DGen Doc from IDP Plus, I am out of here.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.